Good morning, happy Friday, happy snowy, cold Friday here in Alberta, and welcome to another episode of Tea and Coffee with Paula and that guy.
Jay, good morning, everybody. Nice to have you here. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, it's Friday. Yeah, we need to do our song. We normally do a song on Friday.
It's Friday.
There it is. There it is. We can stop it right there.
That's
Copyright. Copyright strike. We don't want one of those. Good morning, everybody. It is also the first day of the AGM, UCP, and there's nothing else on our agenda to talk about for news other than what was yesterday's announcement out of Carney and Danielle, Premier Smith. So we're going to definitely spend a lot of time on this today. And our guest today is Rodney Palmer, who used to be a CBC CTV reporter, international one, who went all over the place, China. And he's got some stories to share, but we're also going to dig into how media is being used to control you. And he's seen a lot of parallels between what's going on in Canada and what was going on in the dictator countries. Mm-hmm. So he'll share that, especially China. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, the big news of the day is your good friend, Premier Danielle Smith, is taking center stage. And how's it going for her?
Not so good. Not so good. Well, here's the thing. There'll always be the I Love Danielle camp. And sun shines out of her and everything she does is great. And there's the more realistic. There's the more realistic
what position you're taking, the more realistic. No, there's certainly three camps, the ones that don't like her, the ones that really love her, and then the moderates, people in the middle. Who pay attention to what goes on and makes their decisions based on that.
Yeah.
Which one are you? I don't think she's moderate. I don't think she likes Danielle Smith. Every time she's texting with me, she gets upset. So we're on vacation.
Oh,
what are you doing? I'm like talking to Danielle Smith. Oh, so maybe there's some little history there. Go on.
No. I'm disappointed. With yesterday, it's just an MOU. Yes, the word veto isn't in there, but BC can still say no. Like, I was hoping that when Pierre and Carney, Pierre threw her under the bus and then Carney said, yes, you're like MOU. Come on. That she was going to be going into the AGM and saying that, you know what? Let's go live. Like, let's do this, or at least let's go ahead and make these changes and show that no, Alberta will stand strong against the East. And what do? They turned it into it's a nothing burger, and let's still have our press conference where Carney comes in, signs, swans off, and doesn't even say hello to anyone, and then leaves her to try and speak of how great this whole situation is and how in 2040. When all this is meant to be done and dusted, Alberta will be prosperous and everything will be great. Not so much for me.
No, she's definitely far right on the don't trust Danielle train for sure. And I'm not too far behind you. I'm a little bit more left of you on that one because we don't have a choice. This is our leader. It's the person in charge right now. And what's the alternative, Nenshi, at this stage? And by the way, Nenshi supports this, so that should be a big red flag for everybody. Nenshi thinks this is a great deal. It's great for the environment because there's carbon capture involved and carbon taxes. So he's pleased. And when Nenshi, Doug Ford, and Tim Houston all say this is fantastic for Alberta, you should maybe take a second look at what's going on.
Yeah.
Because under the covers and the small print in that MOU, even just starting off with an MOU, it's not a deal.
It's
like
not.
People are all over the place on the news. Mainstream media, by the way, loves it. So that should be another red flag to a lot of you. But they're marketing it as a deal. Like a deal's done, inked, all of this is happening. It's an MOU. Let me explain it to you in a legal terms a little bit. It's like a promise ring at best. It's not an engagement ring and it's not a wedding. It's like a promise ring. One day, if we still like each other, then we're going to maybe get engaged. An engagement is, we're not planning the wedding. So the simile here would be, the MOU is a promise ring. An engagement ring would be on the major projects list. Mm-hmm. And then the marriage would be, the pipe's going in the ground. So we're far from that. We're far from that. A whole bunch of things can change. I can always see in the chat, people are well aware. You guys that watch this show know that this is not concrete in any way, shape, or form. It's non-binding. Some of the big headlines that I was trying to share with people was, yes, the word veto isn't in the MOU. It doesn't have to be. Veto simply means has the power to stop. That's really all it means. So does BC have the power to stop it? Yes. Does First Nations? Yes. Do stakeholders? Yes. There's a lot of things that can stop this for sure. And And it's not just that. If BC was a party to the MOU, so there were 3 signatures on this thing, I would have a lot more optimism. I'd be like, okay, well, here's the things that BC says they're going to do, and here's the things that BC is going to get as concessions under the understanding. I would have a lot more optimism, but they're not part of it. And the very first thing David Eby did was, and we can play the video. He said, "This is not a project. I'm not worried about it. We're not going to be doing it. We got other things to do." Kind of annoyed that people are spending time on this. It's actually going to hurt our projects. I'm not sure what he's referring to on that one. Maybe a distraction or something like that. But he's like, no, I'm putting my elbows up, and he's pissed that Saskatchewan is going to be using the port in Washington for their potash. They lost that deal. So, yeah, I don't see cooperation. Maybe if conservative government gets into BC, maybe if a conservative government gets into Ottawa, and maybe if a conservative government stays in Alberta, and those 3 things line up, maybe there'll be some movement. There's an NDP government in BC. There's a Liberal government in Ottawa, and little old Danielle Smith is left alone fighting in Alberta. So I don't see this as a win. I see this as a promise ring.
But you're forgetting the cherry on the cake.
Go on.
April 1st, carbon tax.
Yeah. So, okay. So Rob Anderson, I think it is, he put out a post. He's really trying to sugarcoat this a lot. He was supposed to come on the show on Friday. He was going to get permission. He hasn't responded. Neither has Danielle's press secretary responded to a request to interview her. So they've either bunkered down or they're doing damage control, because I guarantee you there's a lot of, even Rebel, the questions out of Rebel were not supportive. They're like, what are you doing? Like, hopefully you had something in private that was better than this, because this is, what is this? How are you going to trust the Liberals on this one?
Yeah.
So everybody's pushing back on this one already, except for mainstream media and the original, the usual characters like Nenshi. Nenshi's like, this is great for Alberta. This is going to open up a bunch of doors. We're going to be a leader in carbon capture. If he is happy, you really should re-examine what's going on here, because even that Rachel Gilmore was critical in that. Well, why are you guys going to go ahead and pump oil, but you and the only way you're going to offset that is through carbon capture, which doesn't work, is what she said. And she's correct on that one. And even a broken grandfather clock's correct twice a day. She's correct on that one. Carbon capture doesn't work. Saskatchewan proved that already. So, yeah, there's a lot of red flags here, even some white flags, because there's a lot of surrendering going on. But we'll slowly jump into it some more. What's the dealio for Martin? Yeah, can we update Martin on?
What's the deal for Martin? What did we do? But I got to clean some solar panels today because the snow came down. I think we got some high teen temperatures. So wood stove, I think I'm going to be putting on this evening and overnight. I don't know.
Well, we figured out that there a solution for the diesel heater in the rear of the trailer may not be as useful as we thought. So we may have to move that around, see if we find a better spot for it. And the bed works. It did.
Yay! Yeah, it's all fixed. But no, my mind is solely really on this, this Danielle thing. But no, Homestead is good. We got some chilly temperatures, but we got +4 coming up on Monday. So I love Alberta weather, where it goes from -19 to well, it's going to go -19 to -3 and then to +4. So I'll take that.
Absolutely. And yeah, and I'm getting ready to go to the AGM, so I'll be there today. Today's going to be the day where we set up and kind of get things started. Tickets all squared away, and we're good to go on that one as well. But yes, yesterday was mostly about responding to comments and phone calls and conversations about the press release and the conference and the MOU and going through it. Maybe we'll just kind of jump into that.
Yeah, and just to comment some of our chat, yes, we don't have 15 years to wait for this either. It's the chat is on fire today in locals, and of course everyone thank you on the other platforms to be putting sharing your comments as well. But no.
Well, what Carney was successful at is he's really made this an interesting AGM. There's definitely going to be 2 sides. It's going to be like a high school dance where there's one group on one side, another group on the other side, and a couple of them are going to mingle. That's good. He's absolutely succeeded at making this AGM all about the MOU. And there's definitely 2 sides that have shown up, and then a bunch in the middle. Because there's people that are definitely not happy with it. There's people that think it's the best deal in Canadian history, calling it historic. It's not even a deal, folks. It's an understanding.
Yeah,
it's not at a deal stage yet.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight because I know an MOU is an agreement, sure, but I thought Danielle's wording was very, very specific. She never mentioned MOU. She just kept mentioning we have an agreement, the agreement. It was the press, when it came to question time for them, said it's an MOU, the MOU. So she was very clear on the wording she was trying to use, because for those who don't know, she's going to say agreement, anything like deal. This is great. So, and she was, I think 2 or 3 times she mentioned a united Canada.
Yeah.
Wants to work within a united Canada. So
Keep in mind, though, because I know you keep coming down on her in this, and look, I'm not a Danielle Smith defender. I just want to be honest. She doesn't have a mandate right now for separation. Okay,
correct.
she ran on a campaign of United Canada. That's what she was voted in on, and she represents all of Alberta, not just half of it. So I don't fault her for continuing to represent what she was elected on. And she did make it clear that when there's a referendum, if it is a new mandate, she will follow that mandate. So here's the only reason why I'm going to stand beside her on this one is if she's this strong right now on staying on the mandate she was elected on, if that mandate changes, will she be as strong on that new mandate? Because if she is, well, then that's going to be a good thing if we end up getting a new mandate. Think about it. Like, she could easily start capitulating a little bit more to her base. But is she doing what she should be doing as person voted in there? And I'm just trying to be politically correct on this one. Her job was to stay united in Canada, sovereign within United Canada. That's what she was voted in on. If she was to change at this stage, you wouldn't respect her as much. Because if the referendum comes in and it is, hey, we got to separate, and she's this strong and stays on point and stays on that mandate and does it then too, then you'll be pleased. But until then, I think the biggest thing we need to focus on is don't think this is a deal for Alberta that actually helps anytime soon. If we're an independent Alberta, we could do all of this and more. We wouldn't need any Ottawa cooperation. We may have to work with BC under UN articles to go ahead and transport our goods through there, but that's already a requirement on the table now. We could also go through Washington, just like Saskatchewan just did. Okay, this is not a pipe dream.
Yeah.
This is something that can actually happen. And no, we don't have to have pipes to get our oil to the West Coast. It could be trains.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to get this done. But in independent Alberta, we wouldn't need permission. We wouldn't need gold lines from Ottawa. You need to now do carbon capture. You need to have carbon tax. None of that would be on the table. So I'm definitely still for trying to find a way to independence. But right now, unless she gets changed, Danielle Smith is the leader, and she is staying on message, even if we don't like what that message is right now. If she does the same thing when the message and mandate changes, then we'll be pleased when you think about it that way.
No, I agree. One thing I really wanted to highlight was that the choice of words that was used throughout the.
She's a politician who
press
was a
conference.
journalist. She knows how to use words, and she definitely, and it worked, because there's some people who are just completely ignoring what Carney said. Carney said, no, BC First Nations absolutely have a veto. He didn't use the word veto, but he said they have the power to stop it. He's the one that's supposed to be able to push it through. He's shifting the power to BC and First Nations and stakeholders. Yes, and of course, this is what people do. They use the language that works for the message they want to get out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'm going to take some heat, but I'm not a Danielle Smith defender. What would you want? Do you really want her to sway with the pressure of a group? What if that group is not something you like? You want her to sway that way?
No, I certainly agree with that point of view for sure. Because, like we say, if there's something that we put in place as one political party, if the other one was to come in, they could then subsequently do the same to their own. So I agree with the whole aspect of, no, you stay strong, you stay firm. This is your job currently, and then you can. Do as you're told and do what your mandate is. And he has 2 comments here. Lots of questions regarding Brookfield and how they're prospering over all of Carney's policies. And then, yes, she did try to spin it like we won on the 7-9 demands. Yeah.
Yes, no, that was annoying too when she listed them off and we got that one, we got that. No, you didn't. It's still an MOU. None of this has changed. There's no repeals. There's no reform on any of these laws. And again, it's all the balls are in Alberta's court now. You have to get the private funding. You have to start building the carbon capture. You have to put in carbon tax. And she even spun that one like, well, we were the first province to have it. So you're the first one to shoot yourself in the foot. So you're going to do it again. And then she also said, well, it's a provincial level now, not federal level. So you're still making everything cost a lot more money across the board. We've already fought against this, and for Alberta to come in and go, yeah, okay, well, we'll do that first as part of our agreement with you, that maybe eventually we can get to a pipeline. We'll start taxing people now. Oh,
a lot can happen between
not happy.
now and
I'm
April
not happy.
1st.
I'm certainly not happy, but I want to stay um, fair. I want to stay fair. I don't want to let my emotions get the better of me on this one.
Oh, and
if you want to see my emotions, it was done here. Okay. So this episode with Nico yesterday, watching this live, because my first response was Carney just maneuvered her into early retirement because I don't see the UCP party rallying behind her on this one. However, since this episode and watching the comments and watching who's coming out saying what, there's two camps for sure in the UCP. The camp that says this is an absolute historic win. Danielle Smith deserves a trophy. And then there's the other side that says give her the door. So yeah, if Carney's motive was to split the AGM right before it happened, he succeeded at that. I guarantee you it's going to be an interesting AGM.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback from it when we get together. And then I think interesting conversations come Monday when some of you podcasters get together and have conversations about it too.
Yep. Monday morning, we have Derek Smith from the Fringe. Unacceptable Fringe, I think it is. Great guy, really great guy. We'll be working together at the AGM. He'll be doing his thing. I'll be doing my thing. And then we'll be doing our thing Monday morning. So join us for that one. Because you'll get both of our perspectives. And look, you can tell when you look online who are the ones that basically search for the truth and don't get emotional. They're all in the same boat as us right now. They're saying this is not a deal. Tread lightly, skeptically optimistic. We would like to see this happen, but right now it's very, very early. And Danielle did say, let me be clear, this is the first step of many, for sure. And maybe it's not even a promise ring. Maybe it's just, can I see you Friday?
Maybe it's a note saying, hey, do you like me? Yes or no?
Could be, right? It could be along those lines. Or my friend said you talked about me. Like, we're so early in this that it's not a victory, but to see mainstream say the deal struck, historic, energy, and Stephen Gobert, or whatever, resigned. Well, he's a character on his own. Anyways, go watch this episode. This was live. I even have a comment in here that somebody said, well, Danielle's press conference, you should watch it. I'm like, did you watch our show? Like, we covered it live. The press conference is in the episode. It bothers me sometimes when people just read what they want to read and they don't read the whole thing and then they comment. Yeah. It's so funny. Like, just read the comment, read the whole post.
What I was excited about, I was curious about how it was going to go before the live, because Nico has always said that, he loves Danielle, thinks she's great. And I can see how people out of province like Danielle Smith.
Sure, lots do.
Lots do, and quite honestly, that's how she got elected. But when you live in Alberta and you see the things that we really, really want, we want a leader that can try and achieve that for us. And so at the end of it, and seeing his response, I was like, that's what I was expecting.
Yeah, it kind of like broke up with her.
Yeah.
But go ahead and watch that. It's raw. It's real time. It's happening. And the comments were lively as well. One of the first things that happened to us, though, right, when we went for breakfast, is you received an email, and it wasn't so flattering. This does happen. But I looked at my wife, and she certainly seemed bothered by something. Something was going on. I'm like, what's up? Like, oh, I'm just reading this message. It's on the screen. I'm not going to repeat it for the podcasters, but it certainly is a threat on our family and death. And they're considering my work as treason. So, yeah, you can see it on the screen if you're watching. But my comment to Canada. Hey, Canada, this is the kind of message Alberta journalists like me receive simply for reporting on the independence movement or expressing an opinion. Let me be absolutely clear. Threats like this do not intimidate anyone. If anything, they reinforce the conviction held by many Albertans that our province must determine its own future, free from hostility, division, and coercion. And to Captain Canuck, thank you for revealing the character behind your words. I won't respond in kind. I'll simply pray you find a healthier way to engage with people you disagree with. God bless. I got other reports that other people have received messages very similar. It also has the Canuck name in it. So maybe there's just one group or one person going around trying to intimidate people in Alberta. I've also received tips that they may know who this is out of Ontario, of all places. This person apparently has a reputation, and GoDaddy has initiated a security report on this, so we can go find the IP address and other things. Because we can't just ignore completely this. And people are wondering, like, why'd you post it? You're just giving them some platform. The reason I post this is because I want people to understand what we actually have to go through sometimes. And I also want this captain person to understand he doesn't scare me, but we will deal with it appropriately because this is a threat on not just me, but my family.
Yeah.
And how did you handle it? Because obviously you looked disturbed when you were reading.
Well, I was irritated. What never ceased, and I should get over it now. It never ceased to amaze me the effort people put in to not only put the horrible message out there, but the steps behind the email address that they create.
That's not a real email address, so
But
they just typed it in.
No, but the whole thing, like the steps that are involved to do this, I'm like, put your energy into something more positive. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
So
Well, we're not the only one that received it yesterday.
exactly.
Like 10 minutes apart, others received one
Someone,
as well. So we are aware of that. And also, I learned that because we posted this. I also learned possibly who this person is because I posted it. So the communities out there, they received the understanding that we kind of want to follow up on this one. And yeah, we're not alone. Okay, so now let's get back to less directly damaging to us, but damaging to the rest of Canada. Carbon tax Carney is back. I'm back. So one of the first things he did, like, he's such a snake. He didn't even let Danielle Smith finish her speech before he starts coming out and just basically kneecapping her some more.
There is no respect for her at all.
No. So right away, he just made it clear that the MOU includes that Alberta is going to be tightening the tier system and implementing a carbon tax and raising it from, I think it's 90 or 95 right now a ton to $130 a ton. So raising it right away. And he even brags in here how this is a success, the carbon tax. So here's what he's done. He's come to Alberta and said, here's all these things that you can do to prove to me that you're going to be able to work with the things in my book. Basically said that kind of statement. And once you prove this and collect all this and do all this, maybe we'll consider putting it on your proposal on a major projects list. And by the way, you got to get all the funding, private funding. By the way, you got to pay for that Pathways project, decarbonize project, carbon collection. You got to pay for that. And by the way, the people that said absolutely never going to happen, they'd rather drop dead. You got to convince them to make it happen. And by the way, stay in power too, because you got to convince your province that you're actually doing something right. Then, when all of those line up, we'll look and consider. There's no commitment to even put it on there. You got something.
I was really hoping that what happened at Question Time was going to spur her on and fire up at the AGM and say, look, we've got no choice now. We just got to speak out or start being more vocal.
The backlash has started. She's going to be hearing it. She might be surprised to hear some of it and from who. And we'll see. Polyev threw her under the bus for sure. Here he is. And he did this a couple of days ago in the parliament too. He called it useless or worthless, something along those lines, the MOU.
And we know how quick Polyev is to speak out about things. He just doesn't. So the fact that he's done it here.
Good point.
My 2 cents is he's concerned she's going to take his job.
That could be what she's trying to do. There's some rumors that she wants to be PM through the Conservative Party.
That's my side bet.
But Pierre here says Alberta gets a bigger industrial carbon tax. Yup. One of the first things Carney said about it. The NDP premier gets a pipeline veto. He does in principle. The word's not used, but he absolutely can say no. In the MOU, it says it has to be to their financial and economic benefit. So we may never reach that. We don't know what that means. He might say 200% of your profits. That makes it impossible. Like, listen, that's exactly what's in there. And it's up to Alberta to do it. It's under the Alberta requirements. You need to get BC to the table, not the federal government. And when Danielle was asked, is the federal government going to use a notwithstanding clause to stop any lawsuits that BC is already talking about doing to stop this? Her response was, well, the federal government doesn't even need to do that because they can push this through. That's not even what's happening, though. They could have pushed it through. They don't need an MOU. They don't need to tell Alberta to go make all the deals. They could absolutely push it through, but they're not. Okay, but they're not. So smoke and mirrors at this stage. And here's my comment. Yep, on this, Pierre is correct. I know it's hard to accept, but in my honest opinion, today was not a win for Alberta. I will spend the next week talking to Albertans, MLAs, UCP members, and the Alberta government to understand this more. Stay tuned. And that is my commitment. I'm going to continue throughout this weekend talking to people. I'm going to keep my journalist hat on because I want to collect the information.
Yeah.
Like Rob Anders. Is it Anders or Anderson? But yeah, he said he was going to come on. We were trying to get Friday done after the AGM, so next Friday, a week today. And I hope so. And I hit him up yesterday and said, hey, look, I think we need to explain this MOU. People are frustrated and possibly confused. And he was named by Danielle Smith as one of the negotiators with Ottawa. So if we can get him on to talk about it, at least we'll have that side. I've also put a request out for Danielle Smith, 10, 15 minutes, anytime she's available. I totally understand that she's probably under high demand right now. I haven't heard back. Normally I get a response, yay, nay, pretty quickly. Haven't heard back. But then again, our press secretary is probably extremely busy right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see where this goes. I'm going to try. I certainly will speak to Albertans. I've done that already. MLAs, there's one coming on next week. I'm going to actually keep his name kind of private so he doesn't get pressured not to come on. UCP members all weekend. We'll be talking to them. And then the Alberta government, I'll see some of them for sure over the next couple of days. All right. So the MOU, Alberta Independence Reason, 1795. Getting up to 1800. Ottawa is celebrating a new 15-year energy collaboration MOU with Alberta as if it were a historic win. Read the fine print. It is clear who really benefits. For the next decade and a half, Alberta is expected to collaborate on Ottawa's agenda: carbon taxes and pricing schemes, carbon capture and storage, net zero pathway and federal emission caps, and regulatory frameworks that keep Ottawa in the driver's seat. In fact, one of the things of the MOU is it cemented 2050 for net zero for Alberta. It was not cemented, but now it's cemented because it's part of the MOU. If you want a pipeline, you have to be net zero by 2050. Like, this is now, please read it. What's missing? Any binding guarantee of new pipelines, export corridors, or real regulatory freedom for Alberta's energy sector. It's non-binding, long-term, and tilted towards Ottawa's climate and carbon policy, while Alberta carries the cost and risk. In a strong and free Alberta, we wouldn't need Ottawa's permission or a 15-year non-binding MOU to develop our resources. We wouldn't be locked into carbon taxes, pathway-style schemes, or federal regulations designed somewhere else, somewhere east of here. And we would build an energy policy of Albertans, not a photo op framework for Ottawa. The full MOU, here's a link on Alberta's website, and read it. It's not very long. Okay, read it. It lists off what the intentions are, who's responsible for what. And again, even if Alberta did every single thing in it on time to a T, there's no requirement for Ottawa to do anything. And if you were Carney and you're coming in here just for a few years and you want to kind of lay down the groundwork that Alberta even accepts carbon capture and carbon taxes, right? You've succeeded. You've succeeded, because now he'll say, look, Alberta does it. Everybody else should do it. They're the most conservative. They got the oil. And he'll use this as a promo. I can see him already putting his flyers together. Alberta does it. You should too, et cetera, et cetera. So keep an eye out for that. Our guest has arrived. We're about to jump on with him as well. Rise of Alberta. Check this account out. They're doing a lot of good work with infographics, providing good information, and kind of laying it out. Okay, so a sovereign Alberta inside of United Canada, you're governed by Ottawa. An independent Alberta, you're not. And then lays out the arguments for all of them. So do follow that account. I highly recommend Rise of Alberta. And let me see if I can get through some things here. Yeah, Brett Sears. Here's a quote from Carney. It means more than a 6 times increase in the industrial price of carbon. And this is what his first press conference after signing with Alberta was about. Hidden in Mark Carney's pipeline deal with Premier Danielle Smith is a massive hike in the carbon tax on Alberta. It's easy to see where this is heading. No pipeline through BC will get built, but the federal government will be collecting more taxes from Alberta. What a scam. Yep. So one thing that Brett is a little bit off on, it is going to be Alberta collecting the taxes, but they're reinvesting it into carbon capture. So you're not going to see it. So everything is going to go up in Alberta for the price of everything. And it's going to go towards a program that doesn't work. Saskatchewan proved that already. The carbon capture project failed. So I'm very curious to see where this goes. Now, with that said, we got our guest here. Let's go ahead and bring in the one, the only, Rodney Palmer. Good morning, Rodney.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Good morning, Jason and Paula. How are you today?
We're great, thank you.
Wow, that's a loaded question.
Well, we are good. Not sure about the rest of the province.
Yeah, being a reporter in Alberta is dangerous. We get threats, and we're trying to navigate the news. And I'm about to go to an AGM with about 4,000 people, and I swear 1,000 people probably want my head because they love Danielle Smith. 1,000 people are going to be really upset wanting Danielle Smith's head, and then about 2,000 people not quite sure what to do. What I'm expecting to see over the next few days. How are you doing?
Did you say you get threats as a journalist in Alberta?
Yep. Yeah, we just showed it on the show this morning.
How do these threats come? Are they emails, texts? What is it?
Came through our website messaging. So on our website, contact us, came through there. So we do have our web host trying to find out the IP address so we can take
what was the
steps,
threat?
but it came through that.
What was the threat?
The threat was treason. People that deal with treason, so separation, they call me a separatist, find a shallow grave in a defiled family.
So it was a threat against the notion of separation. So they're saying that you're a separatist and therefore they're threatening you. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And did they
they're
threaten
calling
you
it treason
with
and
some harm or something? What is it? I'm curious.
The harm is a shallow grave and defiled family.
I think this notion of death threats emerged really strongly during COVID. I think this is a suspicion. I have no way to back this up, but nobody really knows where they're coming from. But who issues a death threat? Really, no one's going to kill you. No one's going to actually come and bludgeon you or whatever physical energy it would take to murder you. And yet they're common. People talk about it all the time. I'm getting death threats. Well, it's got to be the same advertising machine. The genesis of these death threats, I suspect, is the same advertising machine that is pro-vaccine, pro-lockdown, pro-climate change. I think it's got to be, because you don't see people saying, well, you want unity for Canada, I'm going to come and murder you and give you a shallow grave. It's generally people who are speaking out against the propagandic messaging that get the so-called death threats. I think that they're computer generated. I think that, or they might be people generated, but I don't put a lot of credence to them. I think that they're designed so that we say we've got death threats. They're designed so that other people hear that, so that they'll back down in their freedom of speech and their opinions. That's just my general gut feeling as a journalist when I hear all this stuff about I mean, with respect to you and the great audience you build and great things that you do, who the hell are you to get a death threat? You're calling the stories from the bleachers. You're not on the ground playing the game like Smith and Carney and the people who are actually doing it. So it just strikes me as part of the messaging crap that we're getting through the propaganda that we're hearing all day long. I mean, with respect to your personal safety, God forbid anything should happen, I don't think anybody actually wants to kill either of you. And I think this notion of who says shallow grave, nobody says this, right? No one talks like this. It's made up from some advertising. It's probably a 22-year-old marketing student with some computer whiz abilities that's been hired for, a huge amount of money to do this crap, and they're snickering to themselves.
Well, here's the thing. So when I posted it, another speaker in the independence movement shared theirs with me as well. So within a 10-minute window, I wasn't the only one in Alberta to receive that. And then I received a tip out of a lawyer who's dealt with the similar name before and said, actually, this is an Antifa from Ottawa or Ontario. I know who they are. And so we got that information. And this is not our first time in the rodeo, okay, and we're still alive. We went through a pretty tough one when we were exposing and talking about potential fundraising fraud in Alberta. In that one, we actually received a bounty on us, $1,500 on me to collect information from me. They were trying to expose me as a Fed. I'm not, so it didn't work. But that threat got so serious that we had to leave Alberta for a little bit to let it calm down. The second batch of threats we received
Jason,
is when we covered.
1,500 is really peanuts. I mean, you're worth so much.
I know Donald Best was annoyed because he only had 500 on him.
Tens of thousands at least.
Well, maybe one day. But the second batch was when I started talking about the Khalistani movement. At first, I was
Be
investigating what
careful.
they're
Be
talking
very
about.
careful.
Yeah, I know that one. I started investigating what they were talking about, and then I
Yeah.
went to the other side, the India side, and started talking to them and what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So I got death threats from both sides on that one. And that
Yeah,
one,
but pay
journalists
attention
have
to
died over the
Khalistani death
Khalistani
threat
movement.
because they kill, and not
They
as
do.
a group, not as a no, but the battle there is blood on the ground. There are dead people from that.
Yep.
It's a battle that's it's been transplanted from India with respect to the Indian government, who doesn't always deserve a lot of it. They're trying to maintain unity in their own country after having dealt with a lot of terror attacks and a militarized separatist movement from the 1970s and 80s that left a lot of innocent people and combatants dead. You can now peacefully move through all of Punjab, and they want to keep it that way. So the group that a lot of people who left, who were very much strong on the separatist movement, came to Canada. There are more Sikhs per capita in Canada, I think, than in India, or it's very close. We're number 2 at worst. So you have this. I covered this and I dug into this on my former show, Talk Nation Radio, where I actually did interview people. I interviewed the sort of the spiritual head of the Khalistani movement, the separatist movement in Canada. I interviewed an Indian man who is against the wide open immigration. He said, I had to fight for my immigration. It was the greatest achievement of my life. I had to pass all these score tests, and I had to have a university degree, and I had to have money, and I came here and I studied and I got another degree, and I'm an upstanding member of the Canadian Society. And now the door's wide open to every villager who wants to come in and lie on his temporary student visa. And so there's both sides of that. You have to treat both sides with the ultimate of respect on this story, because people get out of hand about it.
100%. And I saw exactly that. Like, I interviewed the CBC reporter who covered it, Terry something, I forget his last name now, and also one of the survivors, family members that lost somebody on the plane. Plus, on the other side, some advocates for separation, some guy in New York. Like, I respected, like, I did a good job. It's the comments that came after. It wasn't the individuals I talked to. It was everybody else that came after. Nothing happened, of course. And this latest one, which happened yesterday, we're not scared. Okay.
Yeah.
We know that it's, just some frustration, and maybe they're more scared that Alberta might be doing this. So we'll kind of take that as a indicator that they're getting upset if this is a real person. But we can actually move on to the rest of my brought you on here for, which is media being used to go ahead and control the populace. And this could be a small branch of that, when people are attacked as journalists. But media, how they can control the populace. You've seen this happen in other countries, and you're seeing some overlap here with the media in Canada. For example, every morning, a message from the Prime Minister and what's he's up to today and what color are his socks today, like focusing on a message of the day from the Prime Minister.
Well, the guy with the socks is gone. The sock guy's gone. So we have a new guy now. What I started noticing with, of course, during COVID, it was out of hand, and my comments are on the record and very public about that. There was a shift toward propaganda. I worked at the CBC for close to a decade. I worked at CTV for close to a decade. I know how the operation works. I know how news stories get selected. I know how they get written. And that all went out the window during COVID, when it turned into very much a hypnotizing, brainwashing, propagandic machine. And this realization didn't hit me all at once. And at some point, there was a big revelation when I heard a medical doctor, and I now work with a lot of medical doctors, and I listen to them and how they speak. And I heard a medical doctor that really sounded like an ad person. Well, Jim, I'm a pediatrician, and I vaccinated both my daughters. So should all of Canada. And there's not a doctor that I'd ever met who said anything like that. They clearly had corporate sales training, and they were being selected to go on the CBC repeatedly because they were selling a message. So that's where I kind of noticed it. But what I noticed now in 2025 with the christening of Carney as our new leader is that the CBC announces him like he's our emperor. Mm-hmm. And when the first story on the news is Prime Minister Mark Carney today is in retreat with his cabinet and expect to make an announcement in 1 to 2 days. That's not a story. They expect to make an announcement is not a story. The news reports what happened. It doesn't attempt to predict what might. And when they say that, the only purpose of wasting that precious little 15 or 30 seconds of a 5-minute newscast is to say the words Prime Minister Mark Carney today. When I was visiting Malawi in Southern Africa in the early 1990s, there was a president, but he was largely a dictator. Now, understand that Malawi, you may not even have heard of it. It's a tiny little country just north of Zimbabwe and just west of Mozambique toward the southern tip of Africa. And this fellow, Hastings Banda, was a Malawian. He had gone to California and become a dentist and had a great practice there. And I guess he was well collected in Malawi, and they wanted somebody to run for president, so they brought him back. So he would only come in if he agreed that he could be the president until he died. So that's a dictator. And the Malawi Public Broadcasting, which would be just like the CBC or the BBC, would announce every single story on the radio like this. His Excellency, Dr. Hastings Banda, made an announcement today. And in the second story, you couldn't say President Banda. You couldn't say Banda. You couldn't say Dr. Banda. You could only say His Excellency, the Life President, Dr. Hastings Banda, every story. So the first 5 stories on the radio newscast were His Excellency, Dr. Hastings Banda made an announcement today. And then he was at a little village cutting a ribbon, maybe for a new orphanage today. And then he was opening up a new hospital over here today. And it was always Dr. Hastings Banda, the Life President of Malawi. So when I now hear the CBC saying Prime Minister Mark Carney says today, and he actually says nothing, it's a gut instinct. It's my first brain down in the gut. That tells you first before your brain catches up. You know something's wrong. That's a shift from how news used to get presented. It is honoring him, driving it into our minds all the time that he's your prime minister, he's your prime minister, he's your prime minister, even if there's nothing to say and if there's nothing to announce. You used to hear these types of things in North Korea would do this. China would do this. I mean, I did an editor's test for the China Central Radio in 1988. Some of my friends were over there working. You sort of suspend your journalistic credibility for a year and you get to live in China. And they called them editors or polishers. They would work with the English translation of the Chinese news. So the English translation was handed to me to edit, and I thought I would be editing it for language or for punctuation. And all of it said, the North American capitalist Pig Dog has done this, and they use Pig Dog, in there. And I'm looking at it thinking, well, what the hell is this? And it's getting there. We're creeping that way on the CBC with this positive reinforcement of the prime minister when journalism is assigned to be skeptical. It's assigned to say we are the questioning minds of the public. Our job is to say, well, why is Mr. Carney in retreat for 2 days? What's he doing? What's he hiding? What are they cooking up? They're bound. The government is bound to try to sell us their announcements, whatever they may be, in a positive light. The media, the journalists, the CBC is not bound to repeat that in a positive light. Its job is to question what dirt might be hidden in all of this bright lights of beauty. What scandalous little clause they've put in a budget because the opposition either doesn't dare vote against a budget because it would trigger an election under our system, or in the current situation, they can't defeat it because of the very, very narrow majority, and they can convince, one Green Party member or 2 NDPs to either vote with them or to stay away and not vote, so they get the right numbers. Curiously, nobody's pointing out that the NDP is still de facto co-running the country, despite the fact that they were decimated under Jagmeet Singh's leadership to Not even, I don't even, are they even legally a party anymore? I know that they're
No party
Yeah.
status right now. No,
they've got 2 members, right? Is it, or 4? So
I think it's 9, but I can
they
check
got
that.
9 members. My apologies. I only really listen to the CBC when people like you ask me to, and I listen for a week to find out what they're up to, because for the most part, I just can't stand it anymore. But so for 9 members, if they don't vote with Carney's tanked, right? Especially on a money bill. So the NDP, despite the fact that they were resoundingly rejected by the Canadian people, punished for their role in propping up the Trudeau government for all those years, are still operating as the balance of power in this country, despite the fact that in most ridings, they've been declared unnecessary, redundant, and they've been thrown out with the bathwater of COVID.
Yeah, and we saw that with the last budget, of course, right? It went down to Elizabeth May with 1 seat of the Green Party, declared she had the balance of power, because that's where the votes were ending up. 2 CPC MPs abstained. One, he's on his way out, he's retiring. Another one was in surgery, but really, if the vote was necessary, would have done it. And one crossed the floor to the Liberals too. So at one point, the CPC could have stopped the Liberal Party's budget, but that didn't happen. But Elizabeth May basically held the balance of power, because NDP was abstaining. Some voted for, some abstained. And when it came down to it, it was just a few votes. And here we are. We're now stuck with
that's entirely ideological. You know, a couple thousand people in BC voted for her, and all of what Carney wants to do to Canada can be done. It is a system that, you know, we're stuck with, apparently better than the others. But this is where I think your journalists should be telling you stories, because we pay them so bloody much. Isn't it curious that the CBC continues to shrink in its output, but requires infinitely hundreds of millions of more money in its budget every year? Their news department, I don't know if there are any foreign correspondents anymore. There might be one in London. There's a couple in Washington. You know, that was my trade, was foreign correspondent. So you go to a country like Israel, China, India, and you tell stories either from a Canadian perspective or talk about how it might affect Canada, or at least tell something interesting about what's happening in this country that's so interesting to us. You know, India and China and Canada are intertwined in many ways. But they've all been closed. We're not getting that opinion anymore like that. I was watching the morning CBC up in a smaller city in Ontario. I think it was either Sudbury or Sault Ste. Marie. And it was the camera on the Toronto morning show. So you've got a camera on the Toronto radio morning show. So you've got a host with the headphones on, looking down at a script. They're not engaging a camera at all. They're not engaging an audience. It's the cheapest. It's cheaper than your setup that you have for the two of you. And that's the CBC. That's what the CBC offers you in the mornings in Sault Ste. Marie, is the Toronto radio show. And yet the budget is ballooning. Well, why is the budget ballooning? We're hearing about bonuses paid to executives that add up to the millions and millions and millions of dollars when you add them all up. Well, why does a bureaucrat at the CBC get a bonus? I can kind of understand where a CEO of a Crown Corporation or a president who might have marketable skills and talent outside of that Crown Corporation needs to get a bonus for some reason, to be lured over out of the private sector. Maybe that bonus is cost efficiency. I can see where maybe Health Canada scientists or engineers of a certain, people with professional certifications need to be paid a little extra to be brought over into the public fold so that our government runs properly. But I mean, let's face it, the CBC is full of otherwise unemployable people. You know, they work as journalists. They call it from the bleachers. Nobody's ever done anything. And I speak from somebody who was inside of this. I remember sitting around a group of them when there was layoffs coming. And one of them said, my God, I'm a poet. I've got a poetry master's degree. My mechanic is going to be richer than me. I got nothing to offer the world except at the CBC. And he was one of the greatest really, in my view, editors at the CBC at the time. But why should these people be getting bonuses that are in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars individually? For what? Other than giving us the propagandic message. I remember talking to a young woman during COVID at the very beginning. She had a mask on her face. She was serving me a coffee, and she said, "You might not see me here anymore. They might make me get a vaccine to work at this tiny little coffee shop with 3 employees." And I said, "Why are you against it?" And she says, "It's brainwashing. I can hear brainwashing. The phrase safe and effective all day long on the radio is brainwashing." And I said, "Wow, you seem young." She seemed like about 20. How do you recognize this?" She said, "I grew up in a cult and I escaped it when I was 14. And I lived in foster homes after that. And I understand what brainwashing is, how it works, how it's executed, and how you become a victim of it." And that was a kind of a light that went on for me. Here's this kid, this very young adult, who's figured it out based on her own observations. And that's kind of what I'm doing, is having worked around the world in countries with dictatorships, which also have public broadcasters. These are not they're not called public broadcasters in those countries. In China, in North Korea, in Malawi, they're called state broadcasters. Syria, it's a state broadcaster in Syria. So this is what we've morphed into very swiftly. I think it was creeping in the last 20 years, specifically the influence of the pharmaceutical companies, and they spent a lot of money peddling influence, but it went flipped to public health messaging, propaganda for the government during COVID. And now it's pro-Carney, the millions and, over $1 billion being spent at the CBC to maintain the place. The messaging has totally captured it. And it's not just the CBC. If you look at, for example, I used to like the Walrus magazine. It touted itself as independent, right? I think I counted 5 advertisements. 2 of them might have been full page, and 3 of them were like a little quarter page or half a page. That is not enough to print the paper of that magazine, distribute it across the country, pay for the editorial staff, and pay for the writers. Not a chance. That magazine, the Walrus magazine, is entirely being funded by its government stipend. It has to be. I mean, they may have other sources of income that I'm unaware of. I think people donate to it, but that's an expensive little venture to have that thing available all across the country. And, one of their great covers, when it looked like Poilievre was going to win in a landslide if there would be another election prior to Carney's coming on the scene, they put a very dark picture of Poilievre on the cover, backlit, and the title, "If He Wins."
Right. And
you went inside and there was all of these, oh my God, it's going to be Trump times 10. It's going to be Adolf Hitler. It's just the horror of really one of the greatest leaders of the opposition we've seen in a long time. Just in terms of, from a journalistic perspective, the questions he asks, the answers he gives, how prepared he is when he asks a question, how prepared he is for an answer. You haven't seen this in a very, very long time. He's clearly very intelligent, very studied. He's got a great team around him. And for them to present him like that suggests that they were working for the other side. To me, it's journalistically speaking, it's kind of obvious.
Now, there's a few things that I kind of noticed since before the election, the federal election. Even independent or citizen or influencers, like the people like us, the people that come and get out just, in our shed doing our own thing, they seem to be kind of biased as well sometimes. And a lot of people got behind the Conservative Party in the last election. Stop Carney, don't split the vote, pushed that message hard, went hard at all the other parties except for Conservative. And just yesterday, I noticed this happen. A lot of Poilievre supporters are now backing Danielle and ignoring Poilievre. He's warning. He's like, this is not an MOU. This is garbage. This is a pipe dream. And people are actually ignoring him. And they're like, no, this is a historic deal. Media says it. Danielle says it. Carney says it. And these were the same people who used to back Poilievre like crazy. They're even ignoring him at this stage. What do you think's happening there? Is this just like, I want to be on the big winning team? Like, what do you think might be happening there?
It sounds to me like it's the minutia of Alberta politics at play here. So you've got a microcosm there, And Alberta politics is today, I would liken it to Quebec politics in the 1990s, where you can't go out for a coffee without making sure you're in the right coffee shop because everybody's talking
Right.
one way in there, right? So Alberta politics is very hot right now. You have the notion of separation on the agenda. You have the notion of economic autonomy over Canada, the notion of Alberta being the welfare provider for eastern provinces, through federal transfer payments and provincial transfer payments. So I think that's what's happening right now. I think COVID was probably a catalyst to this because you have probably more independent thinking personalities who live in Alberta, and they rejected it. You probably had more politicians in Alberta questioning the COVID response. The CBC in Alberta was the most egregious of any provincial CBC. They were brought up on more complaints to the ombudsman. They had more officially mandated apologies to the people that they had wronged. I looked into a couple of the stories that they did were just wild journalistically, like announcing the Edmonton 6 o'clock news announcing that the emergency rooms were overflowing with people sick from COVID. And they put up a picture of a bunch of crash test dummies provided by a pharmaceutical company in a series of beds. And in a blink, you knew it wasn't real people because they were like next to each other in beds. They weren't like a proper ICU. There's a curtain and there's a tent and there's, they don't cram the patients, especially viral ones, in that close to each other. But they did that. CBC did that. They openly and intentionally, and if that was a mistake, the entire thing should be defunded. If they made a mistake like that, they didn't. They did it on purpose. They had to have. What pedestal do you want to stand on, CBC Alberta? Gross incompetence or lying to your audience? One of those two is true. You pick. So I think the people of Alberta are onto this. They're sick of it. The CBC represents federal funding, represents the federal government. It's egregious. It's gross. It requires you to be oblivious to reality to believe them. And and Alberta maybe has more people in it per capita that figured it out. And in the end, you have probably a entrepreneurial spirit among your people who live there, who are flocking there, who are leaving other provinces to go there. I predict that's what's happening. And you're going to see a lot more in the mainstream media trying to quash that, trying to ridicule it, trying to catastrophize the notion of separation. What will happen to Alberta? And I don't think it'll happen. I don't see it happen. I don't see Canada breaking up. I mean, we're too physically, geographically connected to each other. If Alberta goes, what do I need a passport to get to BC? I mean, it doesn't make any logical sense to me that this is actually going to happen or anybody will let it happen. But it is certainly a vibrant political discussion, which from the edge of the country way over here in Ontario, I absolutely love watching from afar.
Well, popcorn sales have gone up in Ontario, because you guys are watching this one very carefully. Well, I was kind of going to take you back to 2001 when George Bush went on the screen and said, "You're either with us or you're against us." Basically, a binary choice. And if you're against us, that means you're with the terrorist. So that means if you don't like what we're doing, you're part of the terrorists and you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
That binary line in the sand has never gone away now. It seems like you have to pick a team or the coffee shop in Quebec. Same thing here. Either you love Danielle or you hate Danielle. You're not allowed to be critical and supportive at the same time. It's very difficult out here. But I also want to kind of get into the competition that was supposed to exist in media. So you worked for CBC and CTV. There was a time where they would try to scoop each other and get the exclusive and bring it out and actually get the news and be the first to do it. Do you see that anymore? Because it seems like they have the exact same headlines all the time, just a different name in front of them at this stage.
Nobody's scooping anything anymore because they're not conducting journalism. They have no money to do that. When I worked as an investigative reporter at CBC, I actually requested that I be put as a general news reporter, like a daily news reporter, until I was assigned to a story that didn't sit right with me. And I just say, can I have a few more days to look into this? And sometimes it turned into a few more weeks or even a couple of months to do that. They don't have excess reporters to do that anymore. So you're not getting investigative journalism. I heard a story, I can't recall what it was advertised on the CBC as a joint investigation by the CBC and the Canadian Investigative Journalism Foundation. I don't even know what that thing is, but I bet, or I'm curious, whether its funding can be traced back to the government. What is this foundation and why is it working with the CBC? I know that the CBC is co-opted and pro-government because I can listen. I have ears and eyes. So what is this foundation? So they, I don't think that they're colluding by any stretch. I think that the CBC has never cared about its numbers. I don't ever recall, having worked there for all the years I did in both radio and television, people talking about numbers, except once on a startup news show where people were very concerned about are people watching us or not. Whereas over at CTV, it was hourly. The 24-hour news channel host would be, what are my numbers? What are my numbers after the first 15 minutes? What are my numbers at minute 3? Was it the story we were doing, or is it because my makeup wasn't right? They're constantly concerned with their numbers because I believe maybe the bonuses were attached to that, or if another host comes along, looks more trustworthy, looks younger and prettier, looks more, who knows, they're going to get the spot. On a nightly basis, we got reports of how badly we beat the CBC in numbers. So CTV typically gets a broader audience than the CBC. There might be rare exceptions, but typically it gets a broader audience by 25 to 30% than the CBC. So over at CTV, a commercially financial venture, profit venture, you hear about the numbers and the competition. And that would be, I used to get huge credit for scooping the CBC out in the field if we were on a junket together of some sort, like you go with the prime minister on his plane flying around different countries. And so you're all in the same room, getting all the same information, getting all the same video. And my story would be better than the CBC guys. I'd hear it from my CBC colleague that they got in crap that night, the next day. Once we went to the border of North Korea, and there was a quick stop for 20 minutes at called the Village of Peace, a place called Taesongdong, where they it's actually on the border. So the border runs through it. So you have North Korea, South Korea, and people live there. And we only had 20 minutes, but I got off the bus and shot an entire story in 20 minutes and got back on. And my CBC colleague told me she got in trouble for that because they didn't. So there's a little bit of that. I think it exists mostly on the CTV side, but I don't think you can expect investigative journalism anymore. And if you do see it, be very skeptical that they haven't sunk a lot of time and money into selling you something that they're not really telling you. I'm not saying they always are, but I'm always looking for the subtext, the hidden message, the repetitive message, the one where your gut goes, that doesn't sound right. Your gut's probably right.
Now, I watched during the Coots trial. So I was there every single day during the trial watching the media who was there. There was Rebel, there was myself, and every once in a while, one from Canadian Press, I think it was. But I did notice that when the Canadian Press guy was there, either in person or remotely, because he was able to get in through a camera, Zoom, all mainstream media took his story and then replicated it and amplified it. There wasn't a CBC reporter there or CTV. There was just a Canadian Press guy there. And anything he said was what amplified in the mainstream media. So it was important that Rebel and myself were there to kind of provide more raw truth of what was actually happening in there. But I watched with my own eyes, one guy, Bill something, he was the only one providing the narrative that went to all mainstream. And it was kind of sick to watch. And another thing I'm going to throw in there before I throw back to you is he would show up in person on days where the decision was coming down that was negative for the men. He wasn't there on days where the decision was coming down and turned out to be positive. So is it possible that he's getting information ahead of time that the rest of us are not, so he knows when to show up and be there for the story?
Most of these organizations are part of something called the Trusted News Initiative, which is this nebulous organization. Nobody's really sure who funds it. It comes out of England. It's very possible it's connected with the MI5 mind control propaganda machine, but nobody's really sure. But somehow, when you become a part of it, you are obliged to take their news. So they feed down every day what you're supposed to be doing. So it may be possible that Canadian press is getting fed by the Trusted News Initiative and told what to cover, when to cover. But I think more interestingly is something you just revealed that hasn't been revealed by any mainstream journalist, is that the CBC is not even going to one of the most important stories that ever hit Alberta. A group of people shut down an international border, and some were caught with weaponry. No matter where you land on that story, what the weapons were they really dangerous? Was their intent to cause an insurrection? All of those questions are irrelevant. Just the simple facts. A group of people shut down an international border, and some of them were armed, is enough to cover the damn story every day. And to sign a reporter to it. And if your reporter phones in, said, you know what, it was procedural today, I haven't got much to report. Well, then you're not on the news that day, but you're still there. You're still showing up. You still are the eyes of Canada, the eyes of every Albertan. It's your job. The fact that the CBC's billion-dollar budget is going up to 1.1, 1.4, going up, and they're constantly getting more money, and Albertans are not getting the service of a single reporter, not even a radio reporter, down there with their cell phone in their own face, something the technology can do a lot these days, is egregious. It's an insult to you, to Rebel News, to the Canadian press, to all of the people of Canada, to have that story not covered and then covered by some other entity. Why do we even have a CBC if the Canadian press is feeding them their stories? What's their value? What are we spending that money on? We don't have journalism anymore. Therefore, we don't have democracy. It's not intertwined with democracy. It's the foundation of democracy. If we can't openly discuss amongst ourselves in our coffee shops and our families and our friends and people we are friendly with but disagree with, if we can't have an open discussion about the facts, then we can't make a decision. How can we disagree on something if we don't know what something is? If they're shielding it, or if they're giving us only one side of it, if they're not giving us the testimony of the people who are who are the defendants, if they're only giving us the ruling of the Crown, then we don't get to make up our own minds. Our minds are being made up for us, and that's what's going on with the media, with this interesting thing that you just revealed about how the Canadian press feeds CTV, feeds CBC, feeds Global on a critical story like the Coutts trial. Our minds are being managed. If you don't want to say mind control, if it sounds too loopy, our minds are being managed. Our decisions are being managed by the information that we're allowed to hear.
100%. And it was disgusting to watch. Like I would get goosebumps each time I was there, and this guy showed up in person, like, oh no, this is going to go bad. And it does go bad. So I don't know if he's getting tips or whatnot, or what was going on there, but he got it before the rest of us. So it was pretty obvious. And then a quick example is pipe bomb. Okay, there was no pipe bomb. There was no pipe bombs in Coutts at all. What ended up happening was, after a search, after one of the guys was arrested at his farm 2 hours away, they found explosives that were used in mining. So he used the label pipe bomb, and that's what everybody used from that point on. Pipe bomb, pipe bomb. One of them found with a pipe bomb. No, it wasn't there in Coutts. It was a week later, 2 hours away, stuck in his storage area from his dad, actually, who used to run a mine or gravel. That's what they turned into, a pipe bomb. But that was an example. He put pipe bomb in one of his stories all over the news. It was one of them had a pipe bomb at Coutts. No, they didn't. It was not even close to the truth. But yeah, that's what we saw happen real time.
I'll give you another example, Jason. Another big example was during the truckers convoy in Ottawa, when the CBC was on live, and there was an announcer named Neil Koksal who said, this whole thing is funded by the Kremlin.
Right.
Yeah. Go down there and look around you. and see if this is funded by the Kremlin. $50 and $25 at a time by average Canadians all across the country is what actually happened. I believe the CBC was obliged to make an official correction, but when I was there, if an announcer had made such a ridiculous, preposterous claim out of the top of her head, her empty little head, to put that in there, they would be sidelined. It would be like, okay, you know what? You better not go live for a while. If we're keeping you at all, if we're not putting you back on the writing desk and taking the camera away from you, you better not go live for a while, because you say stuff that just is not true. Nobody has backup for that. Instead, she was promoted. She's now the host of As It Happens, the biggest nightly radio show in the country. So they take their lying, mistaken chief propagandists and they put them in an even more important daily position. So it's important to know who you're listening to, what they're saying. I heard one announcer say the Centers for Disease Control is something about vaccines. They're slowly curtailing the dangerous parts of the vaccines. And if you actually look at it, it's any with mercury in them can't go anymore into the arms of infants. Any that haven't had double-blind placebo trials, which we all thought they did, can't go into the arms of infants anymore. And this announcer said, this is because of the beliefs of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has never offered any evidence. I was shocked. So I own a book by Robert F. Kennedy called Vaxxed versus Unvaxxed, which I've read. And it is a series of dozens of big studies, like hundreds of participants, that show the populations of unvaccinated versus the population of vaccinated. Scientific studies, carefully done over and over and over and over again, published in a book along with a medical doctor. And she declared he has never cited any evidence. So again, CBC's either lying or they're grossly incompetent and uninformed. One of those two things is true. And it's just like what you saw. It's with the pipe bomb. It's somebody said it, it forever becomes true. No one checks. Show me the pipe bomb, officer. Can we have a picture of the pipe bomb? Why is it in the bottom of a box marked mining explosives in a barn? I thought it was in the trunk of this guy's car. I thought it was down his pants. I thought it was ready to go. I thought it was implanted at a border. I thought, what was it? No one asked those questions. It's because questions are the tool of news gathering, and answers are the tool of propaganda.
100%. And they even took it a step further and said it was capable of destroying a police car. That wasn't in the testimony. That was not proven in any way, shape, or form. They just did that. And it wasn't even in Coots. So
yes, what is it capable of? This is like when the RCMP gets a drug haul and they say, this much of this drug is worth this much money on the street. Well, they're like, well, what if we, diced it up into tiny little bits and sold it at the highest retail? What would it be? It's inflated, right? So that's an inflated comment. It's, with great respect to the love of peace that we all have here, Jason, you and Paula and I together are capable of destroying a police car. It doesn't mean we will. Correct. It's a ridiculous comment. A pipe bomb is capable of so many things. A piece of dynamite is capable of so many things. So why did they choose that to say that's what it was? Why did they choose that analogy?
Because we've all seen the movies. Because we've all seen the movies of a police car blowing up. Now you picture that in Coots. It says RCMP on it. Now you think these guys are dangerous. That's exactly why they triggered that one. I absolutely believe that to be true.
There's no doubt bringing a trunk full of weapons to a protest like that is a foolish maneuver, not well thought out. But what they took from, I'm not trying to judge them. I'm just saying, if you ask me, hey, Rod, you want to go down and protest this thing? I might consider it. I got a trunk full of weapons. I'm like, Jason, maybe I'll sit this one out. So it was an error in judgment, clearly. But is it all the things they said it was? Is it a diagolon, separatist? It's laughable, really, what they blew it up to. The potential that they gave it. when in fact,
Unintended, blew it
it
up
seemed
too.
to me that the police had all that under control. I remember seeing video of it breaking down with everybody hugging and singing "Oh Canada" and the police officers shedding a tear. And our police services during all of those processes were exemplary. They did an amazing job until at the convoy, they brought in guys from out of town and told them, go and beat and hit them with guns and, extreme prejudice and get rid of them. But up until that point, what I witnessed there was I have never been a bigger fan of police in Canada in my life. Those guys were walking up and down there and saying, "Hey, how you doing? Have a coffee. Everything's good." They were doing their job. And I don't think that they ever felt under threat at any of those protests.
No, it wasn't until that they replaced those frontline cops with somebody else, so another group, and then the order came down to, disband the whole thing. We saw the same thing happen.
This is another thing, Jason, that they do in dictatorial countries like China. For example, the Beijing police practice in the morning. I could see them from the CTV studio, which was on the 17th floor. So I could see down quite a long way into a back alley. And one morning I saw the Beijing police warming up, and they were doing like the synchronized kung fu. And there was probably 200 or 300 of them. Remember the opening of the Beijing Olympics when they were also synchronized? It was like that, but it was with punches and kicks. And I was informed by other journalists that the first requirement to be a Beijing policeman for the national government is that you can't be from Beijing. Because the worry is during a crackdown, you might be face to face with a friend or a relative. So they want to bring people in from the outside. So when you see police being brought in from outside from different police services, so from an RCMP versus the Ottawa police, which were policing this thing with the help of the OPP and other civic police services, when you see militant styles coming in, when you see very curiously our own military widening the recruitment to people who don't need to necessarily even be Canadian. This is preparation for something. This is to give them the potential to stop people from speaking out. And people speaking out is democracy, period. I mean, every kid who learns in school about the foundation of Canada, which was not that long ago, learns about the rebellions of Lower Canada, the rebellions of Upper Canada. These are people who were they were rebelling against the governments, and the fact that if I was a legislative member, maybe my son would take my seat over, and this kind of nepotism. And they were against all of this. And this speaking and newspaper writing, like William Lyon Mackenzie with the Colonial Advocate in Toronto, actually writing and criticizing in a newspaper, was how this country was formed. And if now you have newspapers, broadcasters, more importantly, basically staying in lockstep with the government messaging, what you have is the end of democracy. This is the arc. It's faded and it's fading. Our democracy is behind us. We no longer have it if we cannot trust our reporters and our journalists to do what we need them to do. So we have to rely on Jason and Paula Levine. We have to rely on Rebel News. We have to rely. And then, like you say, people are biased. Everyone's biased. I'm biased. You're biased. We all have a bias. You have a predetermined worldview with which you are doing this newscast. And so do I. When you have a large journalistic organization, ideally you have dozens of reporters, all of whom will have different personality types. This is a standard human condition, our personality type. And psychologists measure this all the time, and they give you a number and an assignment and say, you're like this, you can't help it. So if you have enough of them, there's going to be one guy reporting this way and another guy at a meeting going, yeah, I see it differently. And there's going to be a discussion. And then somewhere, something resembling the truth will get out. But right now we have this polarization of opinions. I have a cousin I talked to about something, and he said, I still trust the mainstream media. And I'm like, wow, I'm sorry. I feel like I want to, coddle him or something. He has no idea. And you have this polarization, like you talked earlier about people in Alberta, either you love the premier or you hate the premier. This is social media and the algorithmic application of feeding your predetermined bias to you, so you'll look at something for a little longer. It's part of what they call the attention economy. So if you're scrolling, you're doom scrolling on your Instagram, and you see something that says Daniel Smith is bad, and you think that, you're going to look at it to the end. And when the algorithm sees that you looked at that for more than 3 seconds, it's going to send you another one, because now it has the potential to send you an ad that you might like. And if you, quite the opposite, if something, I think Daniel Smith is making excellent decisions, and something comes down the pipe, like the Levine show, that suggests this is good or this is not good, whatever, if it feeds you, you're going to see another one. So everywhere that social media has gone, like developing countries, some semblance of civil war or strife has followed it. And we're seeing this here. It's the exact same thing I see when I go into the United States. And I started noticing it when Trump was first president. And in business meetings, I would be asked where I stand on Trump, and I would just dodge it. I was a Canadian. I don't pay much attention. Who's Trump? And then they'd laugh at me, and we'd go on to the business. I was just visiting a very dear friend in the United States, and we've got along for years. And I just had to smile as she hated Trump on everything, because she's living in a place where ICE got really busy and was, going and collecting illegal immigrants in ways that have never been seen before, masks and guns. And, it reminded them of, Hitler's pre-Second World War Germany. And, rightly so in a lot of ways. But because of that, he can do no good. And I look at decisions over the person, right? I think, well, he hired Robert Kennedy. Robert Kennedy's going to change the health of America by making the pharma and the vaccines play by the rules that exist, which isn't ideological at all. It's play by the rules that exist. And yet, from a moral standpoint, as a father, I think the guy's a whack job. But it doesn't, I can have that multifaceted approach to him based on decisions. And do I like him? No, I don't like him. Do I think he's a egomaniac and an authoritarian complex? All of that. But if you're in the United States, you cannot have that nuanced view of the actions of your president. You either hate him or you love him. You're either a lefty, woke, you call him the orange orangutan, or you're a mega racist, gun-toting insurrectionist. It can't be that all of America, in my humble view, one of the greatest countries on earth, are only in two camps. And that's what's happening apparently in Alberta now. And that also, you have to be hyper vigilant of that, because that's actually the end goal of a lot of these propagandists, and particularly the ones behind the scene, the nudge unit that we've learned about on social media that's employed by the federal government. We have now a minister of artificial intelligence. Why do we need that? Why do we need a whole minister? Why do we need a whole department? Why is it a guy who was fired from the CBC from apparently having intelligence that was somewhat artificial, but who's clearly morally corrupt, who was taking his guests, which included Mark Carney, and getting them embroiled in an art purchasing scam so that he could profit on the side? This guy is in charge of the biggest ethical question in our country. So this is what they're doing. They're plowing these messages down through the AI, through the social media. Their division is the goal. So if you're seeing it happen, it's being successful.
100%. And remember, like you said earlier, they get promoted, not demoted, when they play along with what they want. So maybe that's exactly what you saw there. Hang on, because we're going to jump over to our private side and have a couple more minutes with you. But we want to say goodbye to the public, because we certainly ran long, and I think they appreciated that. So thanks a lot, Rodney. And there's a lot to ponder here. So hang out. I'll be right with you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So he's 100% right. Okay. There's a lot of division going on. Yeah. And if you're trying to be in the middle and trying to do a good job, you're called milquetoast or fence sitter. They're basically telling you to pick a side. And if you don't, they come at you.
Yeah.
But remember, become a member. Go to levingshow.com. You're going to be able to join us in the backstage where we're about to hit with Rodney right now to have a couple more conversations, because this is exactly what Canada needs to hear. Alberta needs to hear. Media isn't what it used to be. They used to try and get scoops and get the exclusives and work hard. It's not that way anymore. It's not built that way anymore. And they're using propaganda tools. We've seen this all over the place. Repeat a message over and over again. You'll believe it.
And just a highlight as well, someone mentioned earlier in the chat, it's not just CBC, it's CTV,
It's all over.
global, it's all over.
Mainstream.
It's all over.
Mainstream. Yeah, we grouped them. We're making a division. Them or us. All right? It's going to them or us. You'll know the difference, because they say all the same things all the time.
Yeah, but otherwise, everyone, thanks for joining us this week. Thanks for being spicy in the chat. Really appreciated it, and hope you have a fantastic weekend. And I'll see you Monday morning.
And I'll see a lot of you in Edmonton at the AGM for the UCP. It's going to be interesting. I should be selling popcorn. Have yourself a wonderful week, everybody. Take care of each other, and love you all, and God bless.